Camps and Impact Washington.
Welcome to Camps. Hey, Deloitte and Tom, thank you for being here today. This is the voice of manufacturing for this time of the COVID-19 and the pandemic. But I wanted to start off with introductions. Deloitte, could you give us just a background on Impact Washington in case somebody watching doesn't know Impact Washington?
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. And hi, Tom, and nice to hear both of those voices and see each other again. Impact Washington, we are part of the NIST MEP Manufacturing Extension Partnership. There's 51 centers throughout the country, which is really unique. We're part of Commerce, and our job is to work with small to medium-sized manufacturers to help them be competitive on a local and a global basis. And our center has been around since 1997, and we've worked with between 1,500 and 2,000 manufacturers. Some of the areas of expertise we have are lean, ISO, automation, food safety is a big new one, and certainly during this pandemic, cybersecurity. People have taken advantage of a lot of manufacturers during the downturn in the economy and stay-at-home work. So we're really happy to be here, and we're also going to talk a little bit later and share with you some great news about some funding we got to help back to work to manufacturers.
That's great. Well, thank you. So Tom, do you want to talk about camps?
Okay, well, Kirk and Deloitte, welcome here today. Let me give a little background on Camps. Camps was launched in 2008, and I was asked to launch it as the launching executive director. And our focus was really to be working with the small and medium-sized manufacturers, the SMMs. And really, you know, we're Washington State. We have about 240 companies and organizations involved in Camps. And we really focused our agenda around 5 areas. One is innovation, how companies can identify new products, new processes, and new technologies. The second is that how can they develop their supply chain capabilities? And this is an area we really work with both the innovation and supply chain with the Impact Washington in alignment with their programs. And then we have the third one is how do we pre-qualify professional service providers, whether they're accounting firms, banks, engineering firms, and things like that. Workforce is one of the biggest issues we deal with, and one of the programs we're very pleased with is our M2M, Military to Manufacturing Program, where we've been working with Joint Base Lewis McChord with the Army and the Air Force since 2012, and we've been working with the Navy Region Northwest since 2016. And then the other thing we have a real good partnership with Impact on is we have what they call an ARM, Advanced Robotics for Manufacturing grant, on helping companies move into the robotic areas and actually employ M2M or military transitioning people into these robotic technician positions. So over the years, we formed a good partnership with Impact, and one of the best ways to kind of look at it is Camps is a membership organization of these companies, and Impact Washington really brings together a lot of good consulting and support services. So that's a little bit about Camps.
I really appreciate that. And because it's our first time recording together, Deloitte, would you give us just a little bit about your professional career and background that brought you to this point?
Sure. I went to school at the University of Montana, and my first job, I went to work for Philip Miller Brewing Company. I spent 15 years there working on the consumer products side of the business, and left there and took a job with the Seattle Supersonics when Howard Schultz bought the team. And I was the director of broadcast for them, and I chose not to go to Oklahoma with the team at the time. And so I went to work for Georgia Pacific, once again on the consumer products side, and spent about 10 years there, where I was the Western Regional Vice President for Georgia Pacific. And just a little tongue-in-cheek, I always thought that all of Canada, Western United States, and all of Mexico, I didn't realize that all of Canada was West. And so I always used to ask our CEO, what part of all Canada is West? And she said, Deloitte, anything west of downtown Atlanta is West. Would you like some more? I said no. I was just asking. So, so I spent some time there. I left Georgia Pacific in 2013, and I found this great opportunity to work with Impact Washington. And it's really an opportunity to give back a little bit. So most of the people that work at Impact Washington are pretty seasoned veterans. They've been high level in manufacturing and business, education. So it's a really nice opportunity to help small to medium-sized companies, and a lot of startups. And, you know, a lot of the companies with my background, we're able to go in and help them because, you know, they're worried about their workforce. As I heard Tom mention, it's like, how do you make sure your workforce comes back? And they're not always worried about their business because they're worried about everything else. Mm-hmm. And so we really help them, you know, get on track. And as you know, from being your background, Kurt, at SBDC, there comes to be that plateau where they have to make a decision. Are they going to continue to grow, and how can grow, be more efficient? And that's one of the things we bring is lean production, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, a lot of manufacturers in our state are part of Boeing, and Boeing is always asking for cost savings.
Yes.
And so we have to help them be more efficient. It could be through lean, it could be through energy savings, it could be through automation. And workforce now, with the partnership with camps and working with Tom, we've been able to try to help leverage this M2M program where it's military to manufacturing. It's a really cool program. So you take a lot of these veterans that are leading JBLM, for example, and they go right into the workforce, and they're trained, they're easy to work with, mm-hmm. and they always bring value also to the manufacturer. So,
well, sure. And,
you know, I ended up here.
Well, you know, these M2M candidates, I'll just mention, a lot of them they're very professional from their training. Tom, you know this. You're a veteran, I'm a veteran. I don't know if Deloitte, if you've had the pleasure of serving in the military, but you know, but a lot of these guys really are hands-on, and I've seen Tom as he gives an orientation to these military members and say there is a career path for you in manufacturing, you know, that's hands-on, utilizes your skills, and can be a very good long-term career. So anyway, yeah, the M2M has been a great program. Tom, I'm going to ask you about your background, and while you're coming off of mute, I'm just going to mention, you mentioned about cost savings, you know, and being more efficient. And so one of the programs CAMPS offers to manufacturers is the CAMPS Healthcare Trust. And that's been saving manufacturers tens of thousands of dollars a year on their employee benefits, along with helping them attract good, you know, good employees and retain their good employees. So, you know, if you haven't heard about it and you'd like to learn more about it, let us know. The CAMPS Healthcare Trust as a group membership benefit and has had very high value to the manufacturing members. So, Tom, tell us about your background.
Let me add something about the Health Trust. We launched this the end of 2016, so we've just completed our third year with it. And we have just shy of 100 companies involved in this, saving in the neighborhood of about 20% a year. And the total savings for our membership that are in the Health Trust is approaching $3 million a year. That's the impact.
Yeah, it's incredible.
A little bit about my background. Kirk mentioned that I'm a veteran. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I served 4 years in the Air Force. Had some very good training and experiences. I was a missile technician on the air-launched missile systems, but one of the things, the reason the M2M has been important to me is back in 1973 when I got out, society did not like the war and they didn't like the warriors. So we had no programs. And that's one of the reasons that the M2M is important. So when I got out of the Air Force, I went back to school, and I actually went back to work on the shop floor running a machine that I'd worked at for about 8 months before I went in the Air Force. And so I worked on the shop running a machine, and then went through my education and came back into the manufacturing end of it in about 1977. And over my about 35 years in manufacturing, I was fortunate to be with some pretty progressive companies, and I got to see some innovation coming in and things like that. And then more than half of my career, I was a controller, chief financial officer, general manager. So the nice thing about it is that I've run the equipment and I've run the company, and gotten to really understand these small and medium-sized companies. And this is where the workforce is so critical, because these SMMs, these small and medium-sized companies, are very much focused on their employees. Your employees like they're part of the company family.
Yeah.
So the companies will invest in training these individuals. They'll focus on supporting whatever it is, and that's why the M2M is a military to manufacturing career pathways program.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on the career. It's not just a job. And we've seen some pretty neat examples of individuals, both 1 term, 2 terms, and out, up to retirees, end up with some pretty good jobs. And we've been able to place everybody from enlisted E3s up to 06s, which is a full bird colonel or a captain in the Navy. So that's a little bit about my background, and it's been a fun run.
Ben, this has been an amazing group of companies, amazing group of people to work with. Deloit, you were going to say?
I was just going to say thank you both for your service. And one of the things I do think is really important about, when people get out of the military, and matter of fact, my father, when we came back from Okinawa, they let him out at Fort Lewis back in the day. And he was an officer, so he could afford a car. And he was driving back to Kansas to open his father's work on the farm. And one of the things when people get out here, and Tom and I had this discussion, if they leave the state of Washington, we lose that workforce potential person. Mm-hmm. So this is about reintroducing them back into the economy. They bring skilled knowledge. And so how do you transfer that knowledge base you learn in the military back in and get credit for that? And maybe, algebra is algebra, right? But maybe the military calls it, something other than the community college. But how do you transfer that skill set and get credit for that, and then get them into the workplace, whether it's an internship or come in and they can help you with your supply chain. Because, the military, one of the things they do very, very well is supply chain work and move assets around the country. So I think it's really a great program, and we promote it as much as we can. And recently, Kurt, Tom and I have been discussing about how Impact can help promote your health trust, because we want to bring solutions and value to manufacturers throughout the entire state of Washington.
Yeah. Thank you. No, we really appreciate that. And
let me add something to that. One of the things about bringing value to the companies, since 2008, when we launched camps, one of the key successes I feel that we've been able to accomplish is we listen. We listen to the company. So we are a very industry-driven program. Companies say we're having trouble with healthcare, we look at it. They're having trouble with workforce, we look at it. Back in 2008, 2009, they were trying to understand the banking and the inability to find funds. We looked at it, we brought the banks together to help educate the companies. So industry-driven is a very key aspect of camps.
Yeah, we listen to the manufacturers, absolutely. Well, speaking of listening to the manufacturers, which is awesome, Deloitte has really been on the front line, right in the middle of this whole, pandemic and COVID-19 and the emergency management process. So Deloitte, I would like to hear just kind of like what's been your experience now working through this pandemic, and you've been representing manufacturing at those highest levels of the state government.
Right. It's, it's been an interesting journey since March 23rd, when the governor, had a proclamation that said, stay home, stay safe. And one of the things early on was we work with our manufacturers, the non-essential manufacturers. One of the things is sometimes you can't just flip off a light switch and say, we're done manufacturing. So there has to be some takedown and get the facility secure. You worry about your employees, make sure they're safe at home. We're going to help you downturn your stuff. Now, the essentials, we also said, how can you have a safe workplace? And that's really critical. And that ebbed and flowed from the beginning. What is a safe workplace? There's the OSHA, the standard stuff, but a lot of places, this whole wash your hands, put a face mask on, and then it was like, where do you buy all this stuff?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that the state and many states weren't really prepared for this. And the governor established a work team on the supply chain side, and we had 2.5 of our executives that were on loan to the governor's office, and still have one since March 23rd, have been working there. And what we do is when they have a special need, like sourcing N95 face masks, right? like I mentioned early on, the thought was everybody needed one of those, right? But as we've gotten farther through that, we realized there's the low risk and there's a high risk man. So people that are working in hospital, EMTs, things like that, they need that. They're in a high risk area. But for me, I probably just need a cloth one. But the governor had said, okay, if you can make this stuff, send us an email. And we got emails. 3,500 emails came into Impact Washington and said, we can supply face masks, face shields, gloves, hand sanitizer, you name it, we'll do it. Well, we realized right away that we're going to have to vet all these people out and see how we do that. So that's really what we were doing early on. And during that time, then we also realized that, hey, when this thing passes, and it will, and when people go back to work, what does a safe workplace look like? And so we started kind of asking around, and we realized that probably the majority of manufacturers had a back to work plan or a safety plan, but it probably hadn't been updated very often out there. And so we really spent a lot of time, and we convened a really smart group of people that said what it's going to be, and we established this risk assessment back to work program. And so what we do is we offer at no cost to spend time on the phone and do a virtual walk through your facility. And that's been interesting. People are walking around with their iPads and iPhones, and they're showing us their work environment. We have several questions we ask, and we give a full report of where you're at, where the recommendations are to fill the gaps. And we look at each individual workstation that's out there. And so sometimes we're saying, well, these two people were working side by side. We need to establish that 6-foot distance. And how do you do that, right, in the place? And everything from, there's administrative stuff you can do, and then there's that physical change in facility layouts that we see. So it's a pretty robust report that we do. But what we've also found out is everybody, when they go back to work, besides doing the risk assessment, there's some other needs. Because this is what we know. There may be a workforce need because you laid off 10 people and maybe only 5 want to come back. Well, now I need to hire people. Where do we go? How can we train them? So we get with you at camps or Impact Washington or our friends over at Ajax. How do we get that workforce need? Then we also have some people that say, well, I got all the people back. My supply chain has been disrupted. So then once again, we do some, on a national network, we have 51 other centers, so we can work in the supply chain world out there. Then we have financial needs. All of a sudden, yep, I don't have any orders. So have people, my supply chain's fine, but I need money, capital investment. So we might connect them with Craft 3. We might see if there's other people within the financial world that can support this. There's been some low interest loans, the PPP projects, right, with the government and that. So we've been very involved in that. Where, some counties are open right now. I just saw that Snohomish, Pierce, and King have applied for variances and to get somewhat back to phase 2. Hopefully by next week, the 8th, we'll have variances there and full manufacturing will be back. And we think that's going to be really good and exciting. But companies are going to really need Impact and our expertise about the risk assessment and everything else in the supply chain world.
So Deloitte, if I can ask you, the CDC has come out with their guidelines for a safe work environment, and that's good. And Tom and I just had a meeting with a group of manufacturing CEOs, and they mentioned that they're going to be following that, but the way they follow that could vary. Or some people, there could be tricks or tools, the way they go about something. And you were just mentioning before the call that that as you've reviewed some of these safety plans that they have, and as you're looking, you see sometimes there's gaps from how maybe they interpret it from what maybe is a more sound practice.
Right. And we had an aluminum boat builder that was essential because of their DoD contract. And they called us up and said, hey, we think we have a pretty safe work plan. Can you look at it? And part of our funding through the CARES Act, we said absolutely, no cost. So we're willing to spend a whole day, and we did, reviewed their plan, found some gaps, and they're like, wow, we had no idea, right? And so that's the other thing is we do a lot of work with the community colleges and other companies around the state, right? And when they come back for the job skills training program, one of the things is they're going to have to demonstrate to the community college to have safe work environments. So the contractors in Impact Washington or camps could be a contractor. Then they share that, and it has to meet or exceed what the governor's proclamations are in our state. And every sector has a back to work proclamation plan. I don't know if proclamation is a proper word, but they have a back to work plan that they have to have. And so that's one of the things we're really been able to help is because you don't have to use our assessment, but we're willing to look at your assessment because we want everybody to go back to work and feel safe about where they're going, including Impact Washington employees. So we've said when we go back to the shop floor, if you get there and you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to go back there because if you don't think it's safe, but offer them that you're willing to work with them to make sure that it's safe. But don't accuse them. We're not the police by any nature, and that's something that's really, really important because we've got some pushback. Somebody says, "Well, are you going to call LNI?" Absolutely not. Every time we do an assessment, we sign an agreement that's confidential between Impact Washington and the manufacturer, and then information goes nowhere. Because when you talk about health, HIPAA can get involved in things like that. So we're just there to give suggestions and free consulting.
It's a hand up. I mean, this is what we're here for. CAMPS is here for a hand up. You're there for a hand up. And I think that the cool part of this free assessment for a manufacturer to consider is that it's another level of reassurance. So, if you have partners, if you have employees who are concerned, like, am I safe there? You can give them this level of assurance. Yes, we had a full day assessment by Impact Washington, and the other part of that, I know companies will spend a lot of time trying to research all of these guidelines where it can be a lot faster, a lot easier to talk to Impact Washington.
Absolutely. The guidelines are changing every day. Right before I got on the call today, I just saw something came down from FDA. They're going to relax the mixture on hand sanitizer. Mm-hmm. It's going to allow us to help with that supply chain demand. And it's a short term.
Yeah.
But in our state, there was a lack of hand sanitizers. And I know that one of your clients worked with the state and a distillery, and they were able to buy hand sanitizer. That was welcome. It took some proclamations from the governor because they're in alcohol. They're not in the medical side. Got that done. And Impact Washington helped with that, helped with the packaging on that to make sure that met those needs. Yeah. And so they've produced, I can't remember the amount, but a lot of distilleries throughout the state have delivered that hand sanitizer. And I think you can buy some of their hand sanitizer at Safeway, I saw, and little squirt bottles you can order online. So it's pretty cool. It really, really, a couple of our manufacturers and we work with Tool Gauge and Global Tech. Both of them got contracts with the state of Washington to make face shields. So they were able to retool during this period and provide PPEs for the state of Washington.
Yeah.
Gauge just got an order, or Global Tech, just got an order yesterday for over 1 million absorbent pads that go inside the bio bags, transport bag for the swabs.
Oh, yeah.
That's again, instead of having to go somewhere else offshore, because as we've heard, most of the stuff is made offshore. Our manufacturing community has been able to retool and provide PPEs at value. And so people like Tool Gauge, Outdoor Research, Feathered Friends, GM Nameplate, just a long list of people have been able to help the state. And I think part of the goal is how can we make that repeatable long term so we don't go just back to where we were before this happened. So we want to keep that manufacturing in the United States. Absolutely. And it's going to take some work not only in this Washington, but the other Washington to really develop some, manufacturing policy.
Yeah.
Around things. So that's exciting too.
Yeah, well, I appreciate so much the information that we've talked about here because I think it'll be helpful to manufacturers. Tom, I know that CAMPS is working on some things to help manufacturers come back at this time. Any final thoughts from your point of view, Tom?
Well, I think one of the key things is, Deloitte mentioned about some of these companies that got right into supplying parts and pieces and components and things like that, is it really demonstrated how agile and nimble these companies can be. And Kirk, you and I know we've heard some of these companies talk about the innovation side of it. They're looking at these products that are being made offshore, and they're saying, you know, we can make these better. They're coming up with improvements. And what kind of things can we do? I mean, we just had a situation there at our CEO council. One of the companies said, I was looking for somebody with a cutting table. And this kind of goes back to our agile model, where a company doesn't have to go out and buy a cutting table. They can go to another CAMPS member and secure that capability.
We're seeing that more and more now. Yes.
We're seeing a lot of that. And, you know, we've had companies say, okay, who has sewing capabilities?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, who has plastic capabilities? Who has, you know, electronic capabilities? And that's what's really nice about it, because that's been part of the model within CAMPS, that these companies get to know each other and trust each other, and they're working together.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Absolutely.
Totally agree, Tom. You know, we have these, what I call the water fountain or coffee pot conversations a lot. It's kind of like today, we're on a Zoom meeting. We always say, yeah, we should learn how to do that, right? Well, 12 weeks ago on March 23rd, guess what? We had to learn how to do this, and we had to learn how to be agile and retool manufacturing. So I think this has really forced us to step up. And, you know, it's kind of, you know, I read about the history. It's kind of like back in the old Wars Act when that was invoked, right? About where people really figured out how to build things, whether it was Ford Motor Company and how they retooled and helped the company in Bothell to do the ventilator tools. And I know Global Tech does ventilator tools, things like that. I think it's really critical. And it's really, really important, like I said, that we continue this journey on the supply chain. Now, one of the other things I'm going to announce right before we get off the phone today, starting July 1st, we are going to have some scholarship funds available, part of the CARES Act. And our account executives can work with manufacturers to help them prepare. They may have needs, and we're going to come in and visit with you, and let's say you have a supply chain need and you want to do some supply chain work. We're willing to do dollar for dollar match to help them get back and develop their supply chain. So we have a whole solutions list that, whether it's lean or ISO or automation, we're going to have some scholarship money that we're going to use for the next 12 months.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Let me add something in here. You know, when we're talking about these companies, these small and medium-sized companies, this whole sense of manufacturing community has really come out of this. And I've observed this ever since 2008 within the CAMPS organization, because our most active members are small and medium-sized manufacturers. They're owned locally, the leadership is local, and they're here for the long term. It's much different if you have a Fortune 500 or larger company and you have people rotating in and out as the management people. But when you have the people that they're here, they own the real estate that they're
invested
in, you know, they're invested in the community. Their kids are in the school, they're graduating the K through 12, they're going on to the colleges, and they're staying here. And so there's that sense of community. It's really important to what we're doing. So bringing this manufacturing back into Washington State is very, very important to us.
It's great timing for this conversation. Well, I want to thank both of you for being here and for being part of this conversation. And we intend to continue this so that to give a broader overview of what programs and opportunities are. Keep in mind CAMPS for building that community and networking. And one of the things I hear from CAMPS members all the time, and they'll tell me, one of the biggest benefits I got from being a member of CAMPS is meeting Impact Washington. So, you know, CAMPS is that opportunity to meet really quality manufacturers, to meet really quality partners who partner with and focus on manufacturing. And then you meet somebody special like Impact Washington, who has a lot of programs, a lot of scholarships, free assessments, a lot of different ways to help manufacturers. This has been a great partnership with Impact Washington. So
Thanks.
We really appreciate it. So Tom, thank you for being here today, and Deloitte, and then we'll look forward to more conversations in the future.
Great.
Thank you.
Super.